Okay. Hi, Anita. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I
Oh no,
appreciate it.
thank you for having me.
You came from the Republic of Congo.
Yes, I am originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa. Yes, that's where I'm from. Yes.
What did that used to be called?
Zaire. It used to be
Zaire.
called Zaire up until 1997.
Okay. All right. I know the names changed in some of the countries in Africa have changed a couple of times, and I
Right.
kind of hard to keep up. And then Rhodesia became Tanzania
Z-
or,
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. And how long have you lived in the United States?
24 years. I've been here on and off for 24 years.
Oh,
Yes, I've
long
been here a
time.
while.
Okay. And you're here to
Yes.
promote a book, and your book is called John in a Hard Place. And this is
Between John and a hot
Between
place.
John and a
Yes.
Hard Place. Okay. Is this your
Yes.
this is your
Yes.
first novel?
It is my first novel, correct.
Well, okay, it begs the question, why did you decide to write a novel?
I've always known that I was going to end up writing a novel eventually. I was just waiting for the right time because I love reading. And I've always somehow written something, whether it was an essay, a play, or anything like that. So I knew eventually it was like a natural progression for me to eventually write a novel. And I'm finally here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do? You do something else besides writing, right?
Yes, yes, I have a regular job. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's in business. So I work for a nonprofit in Los Angeles. So I have a regular job, and on my night job is basically writing.
Oh, okay.
That's what I do on the side.
Okay.
Yes.
So between John and a Hard Place, who is John?
John is a man who abducted a 16-year-old girl and turned her into a sex slave. So the book talks about the journey that this girl went through because it's spoken from her perspective. She's telling the story of when she was abducted and the journey she went through under this man's captivity. So John is the man who abducted her from her home in Congo.
Is this a fiction?
It is a fiction based on actual events happening in the Congo right now.
Okay, because I there are a lot of stories like that for real. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this story in particular, I went back to the Congo in 2015 to live for 2 years. And even though I had been here for a very long time, I decided to go do some humanitarian work in the Congo. And while I was there, I heard someone who was working for my dad at the time talking about his niece that had disappeared. And most people around him started chiming into the conversation, telling him, oh, yeah, this is very common. It happens all the time where girls or boys get abducted and they disappear. We don't know what happens to them. Someone told me, like, commented and said, yeah, it happens. They get abducted and they get taken into foreign countries to become sex slaves. So it's based on that conversation that I went home and I just decided to write the story about what happened to those children. Like I put myself in their shoes when you are taken from your home and taken into a foreign land, when oftentimes you don't speak the language, what happens? What goes through your mind? So I attempted to write the story as if I was one of those kids who got abducted. Yes. So this happens all the time.
How do the sex traffickers manage to get these kids across borders without people being suspicious, without flags being raised?
That's the thing. Because I mean, they can't change the story. They can't pretend that they're adopting a minor. So if you did all the paperwork and it's an actual adoption, you take them into a foreign land and you turn them into sex slave. Sometimes it's just if it's a 16-year-old and she says she's going to the United States to pursue her studies, no one will question that. So that's why sex trafficking it's such a big deal. It's a big problem. At the same time, it's invisible. It's hard to identify because you could find so many ways to take those kids out of their countries. And you have to remember also, in all the sex trafficking, the origin happens from a third world country where there's corruption. So you can basically buy anything in those countries. You can buy fake paper. You could buy basically anything to take a kid out of their home. So it's happening, it's right in front of us, but it's very hard to identify because it's so invisible. And yes, so big.
So, do these children just get kidnapped from their families, or are the families paid to sort of basically sell their kids to the sex traffickers?
It's a combination. It's a combination of both. Some families, indeed, like because of poverty, you give them a price, they sell their children. But there's also the other side where they just get kidnapped. So it's a combination of both. Some of these abductors, they go into and they have like an agent, so to speak, in those countries, and they use them to go find families that are willing to just give away their children for a price. And some of them just do it directly themselves, where they go and they lure the kid in, invent a story like, come with me, I'll give you a better life, I'll give you such and such. And the kid believes it and goes with them. So it's definitely a combination of both, but it's a big problem.
Is this something that you've known people that have experienced this? Is this, I don't mean you personally, but like, have you known people who have had their kids abducted or sold their children, or their children just disappeared?
People who have had family members abducted. Like the man who worked for my father had his niece, who at the time was 15 or 16. She got abducted, she disappeared, and they never found her. So I know people on the other side, people who have lost family members or friends or acquaintances to abduction. Like and I've heard like different stories where it's like, okay, she went to school in the morning, she never came back. And other stories like, yeah, she met this person, this friend. She was telling me about this friend that she met a foreigner. And one day she was hanging out with the person and she never came home. So it's different stories. So I know people personally who have lost family member to abductions. Yeah, in Congo.
Are the sex traffickers in Congo, are they primarily local people, or are they foreigners that are doing this?
They are both. Unfortunately, yes, they are both. I think a lot of Congolese men or just African men in general, they find like a place where there are no jurisdiction, where there's corruption. They go in and they create chaos. They do whatever they want because they know they'll get away with it. Like you could do so many illegal things in the Congo, even though it's a huge country. I mean, the population is about 94 million. And there's a lot of corruption. So politicians don't have the time to create legislations to protect children. So people know that. So when they go to the Congo, where it's Congolese people themselves or foreigners, they know that if I do something like this, I most likely will get away with it because no one is looking after those children.
What do you think we can do in the United States and in Europe and other Western countries to address this problem? Because I know I've seen it on the news. I know it's a big problem. It's a problem on our southern border now as well.
Right.
What do you think we can do? Where do we start?
Right now, I think there are so many nonprofits right now that are taking the time to create policies and legislation to make sure that when a kid is taken into America at the border, like at the immigration already checkpoint at the airport, you really scrutinize the person who brings in a child that's not related to them. So I think that here already the immigration is doing a really good job when you get at the checkpoint at the airport where they're checking. I think that's already a big deal to kind of like mitigate. But at the same time, just us personally, I think when you're outside, because sometimes it's your neighbor, sometimes it's someone that you see at school, at work, just to pay attention. I mean, I'm not saying accuse someone when something looks suspicious, but kind of like listen to an instinct. When you look at someone, it's like, okay, this situation doesn't look right. This kid looks uncomfortable with this person who's an adult, and to call out. And you have to be very careful. So this problem is, like I was saying, it's a big problem. At the same time, you have to be able to identify the victim. You have to be able to identify the problem. So in a big scale, I think a lot of nonprofit and politicians and the immigration is doing a good job at trying to catch them. But for those we don't catch, I think just you as a person, just be aware when you see a situation that doesn't look right, to question it and report it if you can, yes.
It would seem sort of suspicious in one sense, but then like you said, let's say, for example, if it was a white adult with
Right.
with a black child, they could just say, oh, well, I've adopted this child.
That's the danger. That's the danger because it's pretty common. I mean, Black people are adopting Black kids or Asian kids, and white people are also adopting kids of other races, which is great.
Right.
So I think we have to be very careful to not just be suspicious when you see a parent that has a child of a different race, because it's very common and it's a good thing that it's happening. So I think we have to be very careful to just not look at it as suspicious. That's why this problem is so big, because sometimes it is legit. Like this is their parents, they adopted this kid. It's a legal adoption, and there's no reason to raise suspicion. That's why it's so difficult to identify when you see a kid who's Asian or who's Black or who's from another race with a parent from a different race. You just have to be careful. I think this is when you have to listen to your intuition. That's why this problem is so difficult to stop, because you have to be careful. We live in a everything is universal. So you have those interracial adoption, and sometimes you have to remember that most of the time it is legal. These traffickers, they're a very small percentage, but they're creating a big problem.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be. And you want to be careful not to
You do.
report somebody who was,
Yeah. Yeah, you do not want to do that. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you can't just see something that doesn't look right and just think that it is what you think it is. You have to be very careful. Yes.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So your book, how long has your book been out?
Only a month and a half. I'm going on my second month right now. I just published it January 7th, so it just got released. Yeah.
Okay. Did you self-publish it, or did you go through a publisher?
No, I self-published it. I never even considered going through a publisher. I didn't send it out. Maybe my second book, but this one I decided that it was best if I self-published it.
How did you find the process of self-publishing?
I just researched. You have just a slew of information that you can find online. I just researched, okay, how do you self-publish? What are the processes? And I just read a lot before I decided to go this route. And then when I felt like, okay, this is completely doable, I decided to go for it, and I did, and it wasn't difficult. I mean, it's a long process. You have to make sure that the book is good quality. You have to find a professional editor. But I just went through the process, and I finally did it.
Well, that's great. Have you received any reviews yet on your book?
I did. So far, the response has been very positive and great. Like, I'm receiving a lot of messages on Instagram, on Twitter, when people are sending me messages that people that I don't know. I was shocked at how great the response has been for this book. I've gotten really good reviews. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Super. You plan on writing another book?
I am. I already started actually writing my second book as we speak.
What's this one going to be about?
This one is going to be about just a single woman, not a foreigner this time. I'm going to write from an American woman's standpoint. A single mother raising a child in America. And I'm kind of like it's still cooking in my head, but I already kind of like started writing the premises of it.
Well, Anita, we do have to wind this down. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
No, actually, just if you want to purchase the book, it's on Amazon right now. It's called Between John and a Hard Place.
Okay, we'll put that up as available on Amazon.
Yeah, yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you.